You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 83.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
Hello, friends, and hello, Marchelle. How are you today?
Doing good. Hello, everybody.
So you're not going to believe what I just did. I am at the beach with some friends, the Washington State beach, and I just went for a run along the beach. And what I like to do, I don't do this very often, but what I like to do is to play with the waves. So I tell the waves, see if you can catch me.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. That sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it was a blast. So I'm kind of jazzed from that and a couple of cups of coffee. So I'm a little bit hyped up.
I'm kind of jazzed today too. So yesterday did like a bunch of house cleaning and got everything organized. I got my food prepped for the week.
Awesome.
I feel like I'm back on track. And this has been a while that I have felt off track. I don't know. I've been complaining about it to everybody who will listen. And so through the help of a lot of our patients and you and my family's support, I feel like I've gotten back on track. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it feels good, doesn't it? Well, and the other thing that's so great is last week I got back after being in Kansas for a couple of weeks, and then you had been gone for a while. And when you got back, I was gone. It was 6 weeks before,
I know.
That we were
like ships in the night.
Yeah, we were.
We just
it's just so nice to have you back in the office again. It's so nice to be back.
Thank you. I know. Just love it. It's nice when I get to see your face too. I know it's been too long.
It was a long time. So a long time apart.
Yeah.
So glad to have you back. And, I also have lots of other staff people that are amazing too. Marchelle's not the only person in my clinic. So
I am definitely not the only person. We have a lot of amazing people that work with you and with me.
We do. Yeah. There's there's Michelle. Then you two confuse me sometimes. Michelle is our nurse practitioner. And then there's Gabi and Tracy who are in the office as well. And then there's a whole other team in Empowered Weight Loss with the online work. There's Lisa, who's doing all the tech stuff for me because I'm not a techie. And then there's Jan, who's working in the communities. And there are a bunch of other people, working online too. So, I just want everyone listening to understand that it takes a village to do what we do here. I'm not doing this by myself, and Marchelle and I aren't doing this by ourselves either. There's a lot of people. And so it's just wonderful for me to have this brilliant team helping all of us out.
And last but not least, but our tech guy who is editing our podcast for us, our new guy.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Daniel. He's doing an awesome job too.
Yeah, big woohoo to him. Hi, Daniel. You're awesome.
All right. Well, today I wanted to talk about the 50-50 of life, and I wanted to explain what that means. And the reason that I thought about it was I just had a wonderful conversation with a woman just the other day about it, and it really seemed to help her. And so I'm hoping that it will help anyone who's listening who might be kind of struggling right now. If you listened to last week's podcast, you know that my mother had a massive stroke and passed away in early September. Now, my mother was 92 and she lived a good long life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to accept the idea that she's no longer in physical form. And, I can't just call her up and talk to her anymore. And as I mentioned last week, there's this sense of instability that's entered my experience. And, I'm experiencing some grief. And for me, it's an interesting emotion because it feels a little bit like depression, because in many ways I just feel numb and it's really hard to focus and it's really hard to do things that require a lot of brain power. And I'd really rather just sit at home and look at pictures of my mom and think about her life and remember things about her and just sort of process it all. And yet, there are bills to pay and meals to cook and things that need to be done. And so I'm just kind of doing them, but I'm kind of doing them sort of half-heartedly and not with my full attention and energy as is usual for me. So that's kind of just what I'm experiencing. I think the run this morning really helped though. But what I'm reminding myself of constantly is this: life is 50-50. And what I mean by that is 50% of our emotions are positive, good feeling emotions, and 50% of our emotions are negative, not so good feeling emotions. And that what I'm experiencing now is part of the 50-50 of life. It's normal. Nothing's going wrong. As a matter of fact, everything is going exactly right. And that's the conversation that I had with my client the other day. Something was off in her world and she was eating over it. And she's having a lot of cravings to deal with. And she just was off. And frankly, I don't remember the specific circumstances of what was going on in her world, but I remember how she was feeling. And what I asked her to consider was the possibility that experiencing a negative emotion is actually okay and normal and not something to be feared. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I think that you and I have talked a lot about this. I mean, I've always had some problems with feeling negative emotions and wanting to eat over them.
Escape
and
from them.
I've done that most of my life. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
what sounds good that's going to make me feel better.
Right.
And that's been, like a uphill battle for me most of my life. And until I was aware of that, I couldn't do anything about it. So now that I know that I need to like really check, do my checks and balances of, like what I'm feeling, if I'm starting to like eat outside of my plan or crave, sugar or things that I'm not supposed to have, it's typically, because I'm feeling some way that, I need to process. So awareness was half the battle there. So.
Awareness is half the battle. And when I explained to this particular woman that maybe it's okay if you're feeling a negative emotion, she just sort of looked at me like her brain was like twisted in knots. It was very interesting.
Yeah, that's understandable because you want to run from that.
Yeah. She's like, you mean it's okay if I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry? And the answer is yes, it's all okay.
Well, we could go way back into how women are always supposed to feel okay. And I know that is something that, society has told us it's not okay to be emotional. If you're emotional, you're crazy,
Yes.
And so we've always wanted to suppress that so that people don't think, we're off kilter or, that we have some kind of instability, emotional instability. And so, which is totally wrong. It's okay if you're not feeling okay.
Right. It's absolutely right if you're not feeling okay. So it's okay that I'm feeling grief and sadness and I'm feeling dissociated. It's okay. And most of us are taught that it's not okay. And as a matter of fact, we're told to ignore those emotions. We're told to have a stiff upper lip. And many of my patients and clients have related experiences growing up where if they were upset, their caretakers essentially told them that was not okay. And let's just dismiss this and have a cookie or have some candy or have some ice cream and let's just carry on. And so that's kind of what we've had to deal with as we've been socialized, essentially. And what I want each of us to understand is that our negative emotions are actually really, really important. Because here's the deal. If you don't experience negative emotion, you can't truly experience positive emotion. Because the negative emotion and the positive emotion are two sides of the same coin. Like this is our emotional makeup. This is what life is all about. And this is what makes us humans. So think about this, for example. You can't know what it feels like to be happy unless you have the contrast of sadness. Okay. So in order to feel what happiness feels, it'll just be what? Just sort of just this.
Right. Just
numbness.
Neutral.
Neutral.
Yeah. You would be numb. Right.
You can't really know peace unless you've experienced anxiety. And you can't really know what belongingness feels like unless you've experienced loneliness.
And just wanted to add really quick that anxiety is fear. So if you're feeling anxiety, then you're probably afraid of something because anxiety is just the fear of fear. So I learned that recently. Yes.
Anxiety is the fear of fear. That sounds like something we could do a whole nother podcast on.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So if you think about the coin of human experience, you've got the positive on the one side and the negative on the other. And your life requires both. Okay. And that's what I mean when I say life is 50-50. So the only reason I'm experiencing grief is because I've also experienced love, right? And those who never knew
Right.
my mother and who never loved her are not experiencing grief over her death. And that's fine and that's normal. But remember, circumstances are always neutral. My mother's death is actually a neutral circumstance. And so we've talked about how it's not the circumstance, but the thought about the circumstance that creates our emotion. And we can learn how to manage our thoughts, right? And in this case, I've got a lot of thoughts about my mother, and these thoughts are creating grief for me. And guess what? I'm not going to let those thoughts go. I don't want to not think them, right? These are all thoughts that I want to keep. And there are a lot of emotions around it that I also choose to keep. So I'm being very, very deliberate about this, right? I'm choosing to experience this, and everything is right and nothing has gone wrong. Is that making sense?
Yeah. And I just also wanted to say, if anybody is struggling with negative emotions, I mean, it's okay to get help with
Yeah.
that. I
Uh-huh.
personally, I see a counselor. And
Uh-huh.
so, because a lot of the reasons why I was eating over my emotions is I just couldn't, I couldn't, well, I didn't recognize them for one. And because
Yes.
I was just suppressing them with,
Uh-huh.
with sugar.
Uh-huh.
But also, reaching out for help was a huge step for me because I didn't want to feel these emotions. So I didn't
Uh-huh.
want to get help, but it's okay to get help.
Yeah.
And some of us need it. And,
Yeah.
and if you couple the eating plan along with,
Mm-hmm.
some counseling or some therapy, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a good combination.
Remember what Cassie talked about in her, she's the gal who I interviewed on the podcast a few podcasts ago now. And she's
Mm.
lost 175 pounds and kept it off. And she really talked about the value of counseling in her experience.
Right. Isn't that why you started doing the counseling sessions and empowered weight loss, is so that you can
Exactly.
help with
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
deeper, because,
Yeah.
because you can't necessarily do that inner work, when you're in the group setting. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so Angela
Yeah.
does some counseling now for personal counseling with, or
Yeah.
life coaching with
Life
people who are
coaching.
struggling
Mm-hmm.
with some of their emotions. Yeah. It's really
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So if we stop fighting against our negative emotions and just accept that no matter what the circumstances are, life is 50-50. And we're always going to be experiencing the 50-50 of life. So the truth is, when you lose your weight, life is still going to be 50-50. Interesting thought, huh? How many of us think that when we lose all our weight, life is going to be grand? When you lose your
Oh,
weight,
I
life
thought
is
that.
life is still going to be 50-50 when you lose your weight. If you get a promotion, life is still going to be 50-50. If you win the lottery, life is still going to be 50-50. When I had COVID earlier this year and I was lying in bed, I was so sick and I had no energy and I couldn't do anything. And I just reminded myself, life is 50-50. And now I'm reminding myself life is 50-50. It's not always going to feel bad, and it's okay that it doesn't feel good at times. So I think that if each of us can remember that, we'll be much less likely to need candy or baked goods or chips or alcohol or pot or whatever your buffer of choice might be. There's a lot of different ways to buffer our feelings and not feel what we're feeling. If we can just accept that life is going to be 50-50 and that there are going to be negative emotions, and that's a good thing. And if we can just accept how we feel right now and that everything is okay. And I really like what you said, Marchelle, about how anxiety is the fear of fear, because it's like if we aren't accepting our emotions, I think that can create a lot of anxiety. That's interesting.
Right.
I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on that. And so I'm really glad that I sought help. And like I said, in the Empowered Weight Loss Program, I don't know how many of our listeners are familiar with that right now. But
Yeah.
so you modified it a little bit to do some life coaching, which I thought was
Yeah.
awesome. Because I know that when people are doing in the group setting, as I did myself, realize that I needed more help.
More help. Yeah.
And because once we start realizing that it's not just about what you're eating, because there's so much more to this, then we need that extra help. And so if anybody's struggling with this, I recommend getting into Empowered Weight Loss with Dr. Angela. It's an awesome program. And I just wanted to
one of
give
the
a shout out
options
for that today.
Yeah. One of the options in Empowered Weight Loss is a private once a week, 20-minute coaching session where you can take an issue and I or another one of our coaches will help you figure out exactly what's going on and pinpoint. You would not believe how much we can do in 20 minutes. It's awesome and incredible. So once a week you get a 20-minute coaching session when you're in empowered weight loss. So it's fun. It's great.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Marchelle?
That's it.
All right. So that's our podcast for this week. So everyone, just remember life is 50-50. And if you're feeling a negative emotion, nothing is going wrong. And it can really, really help to just accept the negative 50% of life and not fight against it, and try not to buffer it with food or alcohol or any other kind of buffer. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.